is it possible that other 35-year-olds know something that you don't?
Absolutely.
Is it possible that other 35-year-olds don't know something that you do?
Sure.
Do other 35-year-olds have different needs because their job, because where they live, because their family, like they need to be able to do something else, right? Of course, all these things are obvious when we're adults, but for some reason we believe, well, as a young person though, it's this particular thing at this particular time, and we've been taught that that is a foundation for now that's the problem. So the standardization is not the same as holding standards.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Resilient, where we champion the pursuit of strength, adaptability, and courage in the face of adversity. Our guest today is a perfect example of that. Matt Beaudreau is leading on many fronts, addressing issues that face our children and our families. You go by many titles. Mm-hmm. You have keynote speaker, entrepreneur, lifelong educator and coach, father.
Dad and
probably
husband
one
first,
of the cherished ones, right?
Dad and husband first.
Yeah, dad and husband first. Absolutely. Yeah, today we get to call you guests, man. So I appreciate you coming on the show and welcome.
Honor, man. This has already been. I've been here, 15, 20 minutes, man. We're already just like, I love you. I love this crew. I love what we're doing. I love what we're talking about. So,
awesome.
Honor's mine, man.
No, I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about a lot of things. I'm gonna steal your time for a little while, but just as just to kind of encapsulate it, I want to get into education, public education, and potential alternatives, and then I want to get into men leadership and parenting, intentional parenting, specifically as a father. But we can get into some of the other stuff as well. But before we do that, I want to know who's Matt. Let's like, what makes you tick? How'd you get here?
Yeah, man.
What got you into this education space and this pursuit of changing how we view education and how we raise our children?
Yeah, thanks, man. Well, again, father and husband first. So that's first and foremost. Been married by my beautiful bride for, we've been married 15 years, been together 18, and we got 3 young heroes, 13, 11, and 8. So 2 girls and a boy.
Wow.
Young man's on my socks right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I do. Anytime I'm doing a keynote or doing a podcast I always have somebody on my socks, man.
I love it.
But I tell people I got into, career educator, I got into education. I tell them it started when I was 4. And what I mean by that is I saw the game at 4. I started kindergarten at 4, saw the game being played. I remember very clearly at 4 years old, looking around at how they had grouped us. And I went, oh, okay. These guys need the most help. Those guys are next up. And then we're the group that needs the least amount of help on this activity. I remember very clearly figuring that out early. By 8 years old, I had figured out, well, this is a game. I'm going to be able to get straight A's for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
I know how to play the game.
But I know how to play this game, right? So I saw that game. So I always tell people it started there. I had no idea where I was going to go, but it started there. So, end up coming out of college after my come out of high school with my straight A's, and you're like, I don't know who I am at all. I'm really good at school. I'm good at sports. I'm good at girls.
Yeah.
Like, where do I guess I'll go to college because that's what everybody's doing, right? So I get my straight A's again, turned down a law enforcement job coming out and was talked out of a law enforcement job coming out. Thought that's where I was going, was LEO.
Not a terrible decision.
I understand that. I understand that more and more as time goes on. But same thing, man. Was like, all right, cool. I got my straight A. Dude, now what? Who am I? I have no idea who I am. I'm really good at playing school.
Yeah.
But I got no clue, So ultimately, I landed at Stanford University and was working there for a while. And I started being reminded of that game that I knew at 4. And I started seeing it at a university level. And I started seeing that, wait a second, okay, the meritocracy, that I thought it was getting in, that's not really there. All these really, really smart kids, but they suck at life. They're all stressed out. They're all like, dude, what is going on? So I started seeing the game over and over. So naively started believing that, okay, well, I'm going to go help fix this from the ground level. I'm going to go into public schools. Like, that's where I'm going to go. This has led me to go, I want to go into education.
Yeah.
So public school teacher, public school administrator, private school teacher, private school administrator. And that was many years going down the rabbit hole of going, why are we doing things the way we're doing?
Yeah.
Why is nobody changing it when everybody seemingly wants to change it?
Yeah.
Why is nothing changing? And what should we, what should we be doing differently? I was always creatively insubordinate. While I was there, I was the black sheep.
Creatively insubordinate.
For sure.
I love it.
Was definitely always the black sheep, wherever I was, but I was also well received by students and parents for what we were doing. And ultimately it came to the point where my oldest, who's now 13, was getting ready to go to school. And I had to look myself in the mirror and go, okay, well, I'm coming to a point where I don't believe in what I'm doing. I believe in the cause. I believe in the intent, but I don't believe in the how.
The application.
The application of it, man. I can't look myself in the mirror knowing what I know now or believing what I believe to be true. I can't do this to other young people, and I'm definitely not going to do this to my own children. So, are we going to homeschool, or am I going to create a solution for my kids and invite others to come along? And so I ended up going the solution route and started building campuses, and here we are. So
wow, that's so. You first had experience with Acton, right? Correct?
Yep, under the Acton Academy umbrella, which is a network of independently owned and operated. Quote unquote, I hate the term alternative school because you and I growing up, alternative means like you're about to go to juvenile hall, right?
Yeah, of course, So,
but that's not just the alternative to your standard conveyor belt programs, right? So, Acton is a great network. Love what they're doing. A bunch of amazing humans. And so the first 3 campuses that I built were underneath that umbrella.
Okay, cool deal.
Yep.
We'll get into your own academy, which we'll dive into. But I want to address. I think it's important to, if there is a problem, which I think we're sitting here today saying, hey, there's a problem.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important to understand the problem.
Yes, sir.
So let's understand. If we're calling the public education system as a whole, if there's a problem in it, let's understand that. How do we get here? Why is the public education system the standard, and why is it accepted as the standard?
It is the largest religion in this country. So this is a monopoly by every definition of what a monopoly is. You've got 93% of your population that is controlled, that is growing up in this particular system. Now it's being posed as the greater good, and it's being posed as the everything that we think education is supposed to be. But what it really is, it was designed ultimately as a system of control. It's a system of behavioral management. That's what the system is designed for. If you go all the way back to the development of this is a Prussian military system. This is a behavioral management system that was brought here. The problem is this was brought here over 120-ish years ago. You and I don't know anybody that's over 120 years old, right? So we don't know anybody that's going, no. Before this, only like 4% of the population was illiterate before this became compulsory.
Wow. Yeah.
We don't have people going, wait a second, you look at the Federalist Papers and those were written by the common man for the common man at the time, and it's something that even college students would struggle,
to understand
to understand at this point, right? So we don't have anybody that's saying that. We've all grown up in this. Our parents grew up in this. Our grandparents grew up in this. So we have taken on this cultural assumption that this is just the way things are. This is what education is. No, this is what school is. School and education are not the same. School is a very specific religion where you do very specific things at very specific times. It's this very narrow scope. And it was not put together by anybody that was going, okay, well, how does child development work? And how does this system, obviously, how does the system adapt as time moves on, as new tools are available, as things become relevant or irrelevant? Like, none of that was put into play. It was, how do you control a population?
Yeah, because you mentioned it earlier, and I think this is powerful for those who may have not heard this. I mean, the Prussians created this to create obedient soldiers, correct? 100%. And then it was adopted by the industrialists to create obedient workers, correct?
Bingo.
Which is why we have like rows of desks and bells that ring just like you would hear in a factory.
To move on to this next task, right? And that's what you are really systematically learning is obedience. You're learning apathy. That's what it's developed for, so that you have a little bit of understanding of working knowledge and being around people, but really it's ultimately an obedience game, right? Rockefeller poured in what would now be the equivalent of like $1.2 billion into the education system.
Wow.
And he says, I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers. And somebody said, well, what are you going to teach them for 12 years? He says, I'll teach them much about nothing, right? So it's this whole process of thinking that you're moving forward, but you're getting efficient at listening to the faux authority. You're getting efficient at being obedient. You're getting efficient at going, I guess life looks like this. Yeah. I show up somewhere from 9 to 5. Somebody tells me what to do, and I do it whether I like it or not, and then life happens at 5 o'clock afterwards, right? Like that's essentially where we are.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the majority of most people's lives. Like that's what they do. And and the thing is, even when they realize, okay, this isn't what I want, and I've got to go get educated now. Right? I've been schooled really, really well, but now I got to go get educated to try to figure out how to take back control of my life because I've been apathetic. I handed somebody else the pen to write my story for me, and now I'm, 32. Now I'm 47. Now I'm 58. And now I'm going, oh my God, okay, I want to actually write. So I got to go find education now so that I can take that pen back. Even though we have so many people who are realizing that, they still are so afraid to leave the religion that they take their own kids and they send them right back into it, right? It's like the story of the elephants and how you train elephants. You tie them up to a post when they're little. And so they physically can't pull away from this post. And one tie around the leg and they physically can't. But then when they grow up, they're these huge, magnificent, powerful beasts. And the reality is they could rip it right out of but they don't move.
Wow.
Because they've been trained to believe they can't. And this is essentially what we've done. And now we've got the elephants that are just tying up their own elephants. And, the cycle continues, man. And so that's the hardest thing to break.
So let's talk about the problem of that, right? So some people might be sitting back and saying, well, is that not good? Like that we create people to be obedient and structured? Like, sure, maybe there's an element of that. But can you talk about how damaging that could be to a child and their creativity and their growth and their forward-thinking mindset, their critical thinking mindset? How
Well, and you just said it right there, right? So critical thinking. So what do schools love to say? We're creating lifelong learners. We're creating critical thinkers. And those are the common cliches. But you look at our population, again, 92, 93% come out, and it's roughly the same percentage over the age of 18 that have a high school diploma. Do you look at our population and go, man, look at all these critical thinkers? Mm-hmm. Do we look at our population and go, man, wildly educated? Well, the majority have gone through the conveyor belt system. And I say the conveyor belt system because not just the public education, but a lot of schools that are private schools will still mimic that same modality, right? Which, again, was not built after, it was not intentionally built to foster development. So critical thinking means you are thinking about your thinking. It inherently means you are asking questions. What do kids do really, really well? They ask questions. You've got a little one. You got, you have 6 and 2, right?
Constant questions.
Yeah. Why? How does this? Why does this? Can I do this? What is this? Can I? Right? School does not value questions. School says, stop asking questions. Sit. Listen. I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And then you're going to regurgitate that back to me. I don't want questions. I want your answers. And if you're not giving me the same answers as everybody else at the same time, I'm going to tell you something is wrong with you, and I'm going to mold you into this, right? So it's inherently taking these developmental years from 5 to 18 and going, look, your curiosity doesn't matter. There are 6, quote unquote, subjects. You have a very specific time that you need to know that. And if you don't do that well, you don't regurgitate the right way, something is wrong with you. So those developmental years where you're the most curious, instead of fostering that, we're squashing it.
Yeah.
And again, we're seeing the fruit of that. You've got people who have lost their curiosity. You got people who don't want to, they think learning is listening to somebody that I don't want to listen to about something I don't want to listen about, and then having to they think learning is that, instead of the inherent factory setting of a human, which is that curiosity where you're like, okay, then what? Okay, then how? Okay, then how do I go create? It's consumption versus creation, right? So it's, it has become a cultural phenomenon that has broken society.
How about the standards, the testing standards in this the curriculum that they run? I mean, are they even meeting the needs? I mean, I don't like you said earlier, you look at society and you grab a number of people off the street and you're going to find, out of every 10 people, I don't know what the number is, but you're going to find some people who are not very intelligent. So it's like you said, they're just listening and regurgitating the information. Right. So is there any value in this standardized testing that they see in the public system today?
So zero, but short answer, zero. But longer answer, here's where people start to get emotionally attached, right? We can usually I can walk people through intellectually why things don't make sense, but it's their emotional connection. It's just like getting somebody out of a cult.
Yeah.
You don't get somebody out of the cult with logic, because all their family still is in that cult. Their friends are still in that cult. Like emotionally, they have a hard time getting out of that. But where people get confused is standards are not a bad thing. I hold very high standards for myself.
Yeah.
I hold very high standards for my family. I hold high standards for the people that I work with and people that I, will have relationships with. Standards are not a bad thing. Structure, right? Schedules, not a bad thing. We're very structured in our house. We have very clearly defined schedules. We're the most scheduled family of anybody I know, but we know how to control our own schedules, and then we work together with everybody's schedules, and we're very intentional in those schedule blocks, right? And it's the ultimate, discipline equals freedom kind of mentality that we've taken on, right?
Yeah.
So those things in and of themselves aren't bad. So the question is, why does school define it differently, and what does that mean? So schools define standards as, again, a specific, very narrow focus of knowledge that theoretically everybody needs to have at a very specific time. Well, that doesn't make sense ever. So you're 35,
Yeah.
right? You know other 35-year-olds?
I do.
Is it possible that other 35-year-olds know something that you don't?
Absolutely.
Is it possible that other 35-year-olds don't know something that you do?
Sure.
Do other 35-year-olds have different needs because their job, because where they live, because their family, like they need to be able to do something else, right? Of course, all these things are obvious
Yes.
when we're adults, but for some reason we believe, well, as a young person though, it's this particular thing at this particular time, and we've been taught that is a foundation for now that's the problem. So the standardization is not the same as holding standards.
Yeah.
Right? Those are two different things. Standards would say, I want to be a healthy human, and here's how a human can pursue health. And there's some individuality in there. Let's say we're assuming, sunlight is important, because it is. Great. How much sun do I get? Where do I live? Where am I going to go get sun? Where am I going to go get this vitamin D? It's going to be a little different for everybody depending on where they are.
Yeah.
I want to emphasize protein. Great. All right, cool. So, but I hate chicken. I'm going to get my protein through shrimp. Cool. There's an individuality, right? Standardization says, nope. You go to the grocery store, you're going to get to pick from 6 specific foods, and you're going to eat those specific foods at this specific time. You're going to take this specific medication at this specific time, everybody across the board. And people are, wait, I don't even have the disease, this thing, it doesn't matter. Everybody's going to take, right? Standardization is a problem. Standards are a good thing. We confuse the two. So what does a standardized test do? It would test you on a very narrow scope of knowledge. I got straight A's all through school. I got a great SAT score. I got straight A's through college, learned how to play the game. I went back a couple of years ago and took a standardized math test. Now I do well, and I do well in life. I think I make an impact.
Yeah.
Money's fine. I understand how money works.
Yeah. By all standards, you're successful.
Standards,
yes.
I'm successful.
Yes.
And by the way, I believe I'm more at peace and happier than most people I know too. Like the joy is a byproduct of the service and the work I get to do. So by all standards, including those that are my own,
sure.
I believe success is something that I've earned in that regard. Went back and took a standardized math test, and I scored it just over a 6th grade level. Right? Why? Yeah. Because I don't use that particular kind of math.
Wow.
It doesn't matter to me. Right? Now, there are people that it does matter to. Of course, because their job relies on it. And I can go back and teach myself how to pass that academic, but it doesn't apply to me. So, and that's true across the board. Yeah. Everybody's got their own individual journey. So what I like to ask parents and people listening, what I like to ask you to do is if you are comfortable asking your young person a question, if you're comfortable asking somebody's like, what grade are you in? Or what grade level are you reading at? Or what grade? Do that same thing with yourself or an adult. Are you at a 35-year-old reading level? right? It sounds ridiculous when I start saying that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you making money at a 35-year-old level? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah,
That's
don't even know what that means.
Yeah, because it's not a real question, because there's not a real standard for that. I could try to be standardized and say, well, Sean, at 35, you should know this, be doing that. But you'd be like, well, F off. Like right? But we're doing it to our kids and we're calling it education.
If you're watching and wondering what I'm holding here, this beautiful piece of equipment, this is the Smith & Wesson Volunteer. It's one of my favorite firearms from Smith & Wesson. And I am a proud ambassador of Smith & Wesson firearms. I have been a lifelong fan of Smith & Wesson. They are one of the most iconic American companies, have been around for 170 years, making the best firearms, Second Amendment focused. And I love the people there. This from the CEO to the vice president that have become personal friends of mine. They are supporters of our military and first responder communities. In fact, they are supporters of Mighty Oaks, which makes them the premier sponsor of this show. And if you are in the market for one of the best firearms out there, then whether it's a rifle, a pistol, for whatever reason, for hunting, for self-defense, you need to get yourself a Smith & Wesson. You can't go wrong with Smith & Wesson. The quality, the craftsmanship, and the company itself is no way you go wrong. So check out Smith & Wesson and get yourself one of the most iconic American firearms you get your hands on. Smith & Wesson, my go-to, and a proud supporter of Mighty Oaks and our military and first responder communities. All right, guys, I want to thank one of our show sponsors. By the way, all the sponsors for Resilience are supporters of Mighty Oaks for our military and first responder communities. No better one than Gators. Gators has been serving the military and first responder communities with the most incredible American-made eyewear for 35 years. Lifetime frames. Before I got involved with them professionally, I wore Gators all over the world through military operations. The ballistic lenses are something I really believe in. The aluminum frames, just the clarity of the lenses, their polarization. I wore them for skydiving because they have a polarized lens that allows you to see digital screens. And so for skydiving, shooting, you name it, all the crazy activities I do, I wore Gators. And then now I'm blessed to be in a relationship with them. And they're an amazing partner for Mighty Oaks. The best eyewear out there. Again, lifetime frame, American made, 35 years of service to our military and first responder communities. There is no better eyewear out there than Gators, and they look super cool. So I love mine, and get yourself some.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about another issue. We'll stay in the current problem. And this is, we're seeing a little bit more of people pushing back on this now. But let's talk about school funding.
Yes, sir.
And what appears to be, and what I'm gonna come out and say that there's an agenda that runs and coincides with the funding.
Yes, sir.
In your own research and your own, is this true?
Yeah. The funding is based on a million different things. Partially, it's based on school obedience. You get funded based on running the right program, saying the right things, pushing the right stuff. Like there's an element of you don't even have a choice, and you just got to make sure you're pushing the right stuff. And then funding based on what we just talked about too, standardized tests. And I've seen this at campuses where it's like, okay, well, we got the standardized test. That's going to determine our funding for next year. We've got a certain population that we know doesn't do very well on the standardized test. I've seen principals game the system of where it's like, okay, I'm going to actually disenroll these students. There was a particular school that I was familiar with in California in the Central Valley. The students were mostly from migrant families. A lot of them would go back to Mexico in December. And so there was kind of this game that was played on, okay, well, we're going to actually disenroll but only certain students because their scores, we're going to drive down the funding over here anyways. We knew, like, there's all these games being
now
played,
we're talking
right?
about disparity.
So now, 100%.
Yeah.
Right? But at the root of all this, too, is the assumption that funding is I almost want to say a bigger issue than it really is. We talk about increasing fund. We've increased funding at our schools forever. But what does that funding go towards? It goes towards things that are not efficacious in the first place. It goes towards more textbooks. When's the last time you grabbed a textbook when you wanted to learn something?
When I was in school.
When you were in school.
Yeah.
And even then, it was just because that was what was given to you.
Yeah.
Right? We've got you got a library card and internet access. You have access to all information of all time.
Yeah.
Right? So then why did Houghton Mifflin make more than the entire NFL last year? Like why? Who needs the damn textbooks?
Yeah.
Like it's not, so we don't need funding for the textbooks. We don't need funding for these mental health programs. That's a huge part of what the funding is going towards now. Hey, by the way, research shows that if all you're doing is talking to kids about mental health, but you're taking away the things that fundamentally make them mentally healthy, we actually make the problems worse. So that's what we're doing. We're talking incessantly about mental health, and we're talking to them about how to talk about their feelings. And we're trying to do this kind of like this preemptive therapy, and it's wrecking their mental health, because what actually creates mental health for students? It's not, you don't talk about it. It's not talking about it. It's actually creating the fundamental blocks of being a healthy human being. It's making sure they have purpose. It's making sure they're physically healthy. It's making sure they have solid relationships around them. It's making sure they're going after something. It's all of the factory settings things, but we're taking everything out to do that. Right? But the funding comes towards for mental health. We don't have a funding issue. We have a priorities issue. That's the thing. So what you're seeing is a lot of these alternative, quote unquote, alternative programs acting as a great, representation of this. Apogee, obviously, we think we're a great representation of this. You'll be able to get the cost per learner to actually drive a solid educational experience down to, a fifth, a sixth of what public schools are spending for a vastly different experience.
Wow.
It's night and day. So funding is not the issue. It's what we're doing is the issue. Now, if funding becomes an issue in the alternative, because what happens if you have to privatize everything is people have to pay for it. Right? And so then it becomes an issue, and people are going, but I'm already paying out of my taxes for my kids to go here. And I'm like, all right, cool, man. So if you were getting free meals, if you're getting free McDonald's for your kids, paid out of your taxes, and 2 out of the 3 meals were, was Mickey D's, and then you found out there was somebody slipping some poison in there too, are you going to just go, wow, shit, it's free? Or are you going to pull them out and go, all right, I'm not letting them get poisoned 2 out of the 3 meals, right? So we're working on making sure these things are accessible to people too, because they weren't planning on necessarily paying for this. Although I'd argue there's nothing, more important than paying for it. So yeah, funding is, it's driven by the wrong things, but it goes towards the wrong things too.
So this is a little, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but you brought something up that interests me. Is there a way, is there a system, which I believe there is, there should be, that we pay taxes for the public school system. Why can't my taxes go to an Apogee instead of a public school system?
Yeah.
Is that a possibility in the future? Is that something we can fight for?
Yeah, there are states. I believe Texas is one, but there are states that are moving that school choice money,
right?
School choice towards to the families. And there's a lot of people that, okay, well, this is only going to benefit, and I don't even, I don't get too much into the fight of the school choice money should be a thing, shouldn't be a thing.
I've heard both.
I've heard both sides. Look, and you can probably make a case for.
I've heard strong for both.
I'm sure, 100%, 100%. The reason I don't engage in that argument as much is because I also won't fight for people to go into the public school system that's not the right thing in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, the reality is people need to have alternatives that are not conveyor belt schooling, and how do I make that accessible to everybody? And I've heard some of the great arguments for the school choice money is how it's going to affect different populations, right? So our whole thing is we want to make this accessible to anybody and everybody who is a character-driven human. I don't care what background you come from. I don't care about your socioeconomic status. I want to make it available to you if you're a good person. Period, end of story. So that's what we're focusing on. So yes, school. So we've got 2 foundations. One that can take the school choice money. It's a public-facing charity.
Okay.
And then another that is a private foundation that literally every single dollar that comes in goes towards helping a campus or scholarshiping young people. It doesn't matter. You just have to be a good human being.
Yeah. We'll call them out again, but what are the names so people can...
The foundation.
Yeah.
So Apogee Strong Foundation is that private foundation.
Okay.
And we just got the approval for Apogee Education Foundation. And so that's going to be the one that, we're talking to 5 or 6 governors on the school choice side of things. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So that one's up and running. But Apogee Strong Foundation, I mean, literally we had 25,000 that came in last week that somebody donated, and 25,000 went right back out to go help our campuses to connect with people in their communities.
Amazing. That's awesome.
The best.
All right. So we beat down the problem. we beat the problem up. So let's talk about proposed solutions.
Yes, sir.
So, we have Acton we talked about, but let's talk about Apogee. This is I love what you guys are doing. So let's talk about, why is it a solution? What is y'all's model? What does it look like? Why is it different?
I appreciate that. The root of all of this, the question that, by the way, in everything that I did in the conveyor belt side, whether it was the university level, whether it was at, in the public schools and the private schools, the root of this, I was asked this question by a gentleman named Seth Godin, who some of the listeners may know. Seth's a brilliant guy, brilliant author. And it was early on in my journey in Acton. He says, well, what should education be for? I was like, man, I've been in the school system for so long, but I've actually never been asked that question. What should education be for? So in our belief is that education should be ultimately for personal sovereignty and personal freedom, right? To be able to do the things that you want to do with the people that you want to do them with. Have the capability to do that, have the capability to get back to growing, take personal responsibility, be able to take the responsibility to go pass that along and help other human beings. Like, we believe education should be for a sovereign society. So everything that we're doing on the Apogee side is to attempt to build an educational experience, not a school experience, an educational experience to allow people to do exactly that. We are providing roadmaps that are not designed to say, hey, this is the only way to do this. It's designed to be an individualized roadmap so that you can go forward and produce your own roadmaps and pass it along. So we've got multiple verticals designed to stand alone, but then they ultimately come together. So we've got our young men's mentorship program, kind of the 12 to 18-year-old range. They've got 12 months of projects and challenges, a new project and a new challenge every month. A new recommended book, a specific set of workouts. They're in a private platform. We're pouring into them every single day. And every week they get on calls with, just some of the best men on the planet. And the whole goal of that program is, how do I become a sovereign young man? How do I go provide value? How do I push myself forward? How do I figure out what I'm good at? How do I figure out what I'm not good at, what I want to get better at? How do I partner with this? How do I create value in the world? How do I serve? How do I treat other people well? How do I lead intentionally?
Yeah.
That's the whole point, right? So we got the young ladies program that's on the way to do the same thing. The men's program designed the same way. And by the way, when I say 12 months, it is an intense 12 months, but if the young men complete 12 months, we work with them in perpetuity, no charge. They stay with us forever. We have young men that have been with us for years.
Oh, wow.
At this point, and we stay with them. They stay involved in the, all the calls. We help connect them to, job opportunities, and we don't stop because we want these leaders to take these roles. So we've got our young men. We've got our men's program doing the exact same thing. Our women's program doing the exact same thing. We got about 300 families right now that we take through a home education model. And then we've got about 50 affiliates right now who are launching physical K through 12 campuses all over the U.S., one in Canada, one in Australia for 2024. We'll launch applications to bring more people in afterwards. These K through 12 campuses for young men, for young women, they go to an actual physical location that is, again, a representation of what we believe education should be.
Sure.
Mom and dad, by their kids going to this location, mom and dad go through Apogee Man, Apogee Woman. It's education for the entire family.
Look at this.
Everybody together. That's the point.
This is what I love, what you are doing, because you are taking the problem and you are driving to the root cause.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, I think that's what's so amazing, right? Like public school, private school. Okay, so maybe private school is the solution, one of the solutions, right? Even if it's a great solution,
Sure.
right? Well, root cause is still not being addressed. Like, is the family educated? You know,
Correct.
the father and mother leading?
Correct.
Are they equipped to equip their
That's
children?
exactly it, man.
And you guys, that's what I hear you guys are doing at Apogee.
Brother, that's always the most important part, right? So one of the things that I've seen in running campuses, we can talk growth mindset all day. We can equip these young people all day. But the reality is, mom and dad are always the primary educators. Always. As they should be. As it's designed to be.
Yeah.
So if we're talking growth mindset all day long and we're going, hey, pursue, here's what sovereignty looks like. We're going to push you outside of your comfort zone, but we're going to do that in a thing that actually matters. We're not pushing you outside your comfort zone because you need to get an A in trig. We're like, no, let's go learn what communication actually looks like. Let's learn what civil discourse looks like. Let's learn what critical thinking actually looks like. We're going to have you think about your thinking. We're going to have you intentionally figure out where you might be wrong and then have to argue the other side. We're going to have you go collaborate with another human being who may have different ideas than you, but you guys have to go produce something, and you're actually in competition with somebody else. We're going to have you go build a business. We're going to have you go pitch to investors. We're going to have you do all these things. You're going to have responsibilities on campus. You're going to have internships and apprentices. We're pushing all of these things, and then they go home, and mom and dad can't communicate. Mom and dad are incapable or don't want to or don't know how to think and to engage in civil discourse. Mom and dad are not healthy and are not pursuing a physically healthy lifestyle. Mom and dad are going, yeah, go ahead and you can be anything you want to be. God, it's freaking Monday. I hate it. I hate my life. I hate my job, and aren't doing anything about it. And they're just drowning their sorrows in distractions or other. We lose.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't lose. The young person loses.
Yeah.
So it needs to be this entire, like, if we're going to shift culture, we need to focus on everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be moving forward.
Yeah. Man, I love this because I think I want to dive a little bit into what you just said, dissect it a little bit more. This idea that the responsibility is on the parents,
Yes,
as
sir.
it should be.
Yes, sir.
Right? I don't think that people believe that. I think that they believe that the public education system is for them to send their schools to the public education, to go through public education, and that's not true.
No.
And I think that sometimes, and I'm saying this with empathy and compassion because I'm a father and I've fought this battle of, like, sometimes it would be easier, right, to send them to this
course
school or send them to this program or whatever it is, so that somebody else can teach them, so I don't have to do the hard work.
That's right.
And I think that a lot of times that when we're sending a child to any type of whether it's education or some program or something like that, a lot of times it's not for them, it's for us, it's for the parent.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And so I think it makes me think about, I have a buddy of mine, and they wrestle with this, and they did it the right way, thankfully. But kids in public school, normal child, rambunctious, jumps around, plays, talks, out of hand, asks questions, interrupts, all normal. You look at a clinical diagnosis of that and they say that's ADHD.
That's right.
Right? So they're like, hey, the school contacts the parents, hey, your child has ADHD. We need to put him on medication. Right? So the easiest thing, because now the teachers are like, well, the easiest thing for us is to subdue him with medication because we don't want to deal with his behavior.
That's right.
Right? And so the parents are wrestling like, I don't want my child to be on medication, but this would be the easiest thing. This would solve our problem. Right? Thankfully, they wrestle with it and they're like, we're not doing that. But I think that a lot of times that's where we're at today. It's like, hey, that's the easiest way to do it. Let's do the easiest path.
That's right. It's like, oh gosh, okay. I didn't realize my kid was born with a methamphetamine deficiency, but I better hook him up.
Oh, bro.
Right? I mean, that's essentially so there's no questions asked, because why? Because the expert. One expert recommended it. Give me some quotes. One expert recommended it, and the other expert doctor was like, yep, you bet. I'm happy to prescribe it. And everybody is happy, right? It's easier for the teacher now because now we've got a very docile young being that I can get to fall in line. Again, remember behavioral management. And I've got 35 of these young people, and like I'm stressed out. So I just need them to sit there and listen to what I'm telling. Like, it doesn't matter that I'm boring the hell out of everybody. And I would have been bored too as a kid. Doesn't matter. This is the system. I've got to follow the script. And this is the system, this is the script I've been given. So, and then the doctors, of course, get their money to go ahead and prescribe, right? So you got a systemic issues all the way around. But what it boils down to is what you said is parents. And again, I empathize too, man, but what's the easiest thing? Well, shoot, my middle daughter is a competitive gymnast. And so we had a 6-hour drive a week or two ago to go to a gymnastics meet. And so we go to this gymnastics meet, she rocks it, and we're like, all right, 6-hour drive home, right? So here we go. But we're in the middle of nothing as we're driving back, and everybody's hungry, and we're just and literally the only thing every once in a while that pops up is McDonald's. That's it. What is the easiest thing to do? Dude, you stop and everybody's hungry, man. Yeah. The easiest thing is that. But here's the deal. Our standards, and again, I'm not knocking somebody if you eat McDonald's, but for us, dude, for us, we're not going to do it. Yeah. We don't. My kids have never had it. And there's a reason for that, man. I don't believe in poisoning yourself and calling it food.
Yeah.
I just don't. So what'd we do? We drove straight through. We got home really late and we had home cooked food because we know what we're putting in our bodies. To us, it's that important.
It should be.
Right? It's that important. I don't see anything more important than when you're talking physical health of our kids and what are they going to do for 6-7 hours a day, 5 days a week for 13 years in the most foundational years of their life where their mind is being developed. All these synapses are being created. All of this, it goes back to that thing we said earlier, normal, right?
Yeah.
What is normal for them? If you and I do something for 13 years straight, we do it, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, we're going to get pretty freaking good at it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be really hard to get out of that habit.
Yeah.
Well, the habit we're developing for them in the most fundamentally important part of their life from a developmental perspective, we're getting in the habit of listening to the authority, the habit of deciding that life kind of sucks and let yourself be distracted, the habit of just everything sucks around here, but what is a way that I can just give myself a little bit of entertainment over here? Well, I'll get on the TikTok here, I'll film this fight over here, dude, it's too important to me to even go down that rabbit hole, man.
And then because I'm super passionate about this, so I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole because we'll be here for 5 hours. and then what you talked about is, so now we're talking about they're not entertained in school. They're forced to sit in a desk and they're fed trash.
And they're fed
because most parents don't. And again, I'm not attacking parents, but let's be honest. You're not sending your child with the most nutrition food. You're usually just sending them with either their own trash or they're going through the lunch line at school. They're going through lunch, which is trash. So and nutrition is, vastly important. I love that little story you just gave because it is literally what makes or breaks.
That's right.
Yeah.
You want to talk about mental health for young people. If you do not care about their physical health, then you need to zip it when it comes to mental health.
Yeah.
If you didn't know, that's okay. But if you're hearing this for the first time, you've got work to do and go get it because now you know that physical health is the precursor to mental health.
Yep.
And that means exercise, and that means real food, and that means sunlight, and that means paying attention to what goes on the body. It's all of
optimizing
that. All
sleep.
Sleep, optimizing all of that as much as humanly possible. If you really care about mental health, physical health is not negotiable.
Yeah. So I'll share a story. And this is just for what the discussion we're talking about. So I, adopted a teenager, bring her home. More medications than you could.
I believe it.
Because she's in the system, right? They're like, whatever's easiest for them.
Sir.
But she got a problem that we think it's a problem. Let's get her a pill.
Yep.
So we create the structure, healthy structure in a family. Hey, these are your sleep times. These are our wake times with, with the creativity and the freedom of that as well. But let's create some structure and optimize some things. We're going to eat this way, with, these are the range of things, that we eat. These are the standards of our foods.
Yep.
We don't eat McDonald's, we don't sit around and eat chips and stuff, and we don't spend 6 hours on a screen.
Yep.
Right. So all this to say, we were able to get her completely off
I have no doubt.
all of her medication.
I have no doubt.
All psych meds, by the way.
Yep.
All of her medication.
Yep.
Living normal life. Did she still struggle with some things that she was struggling with? Absolutely. Like we all. Did the medication do anything for her that proper nutrition, exercise, sunlight, sleep didn't do? Community,
Yeah,
social community
That's
that
right.
couldn't do? Absolutely not. It did
exactly
nothing.
right.
It did nothing. You just didn't want to do the hard work
That's right.
of creating the structure, instilling this discipline when it comes to nutrition, exercise, sleep, being involved in a community that loves you and cares for you. They just don't want to do that hard work.
That's exactly it, dude. And that is it. That's the factory. It's what I call the factory settings. That is what normal is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be the old guy with the gray beard who's like, back in my day, because it wasn't that way in my day either.
Yeah,
but the reality is, you go a little further back, that was the majority of the world. You had to be somewhat self-sufficient. Were there other issues there? Of course, there were other issues. Did people not get along? Yes, I get all that stuff. But look, the reality was you had to be self-sufficient. You had to be relatively active. You weren't getting exposed to a bunch of garbage. You had to build community with the people you were around. That is the factory setting for a healthy human being. And we've put all the, not only are we doing all this garbage, we're starting to describe normal life like it's some sort of issue, some sort of like it's supposed to just be this Hallmark movie that's supposed to, and so it's like, oh, well, I'm so stressed. I need me time because I'm so stressed out. Holy dude, we're a hot mess, and then we're just perpetuating that with our young kids as early as possible, and we're focusing on, oh my God, they're 6 and they're not happy. What okay, cool. Let's fix the factory settings. Let's make sure they're active. Let's get them around good people. It's all the stuff we're talking about, but we're just talking mental health versus actually setting them up for it. And those psych meds, man. And again, is there a place for it? Maybe. I'm not smart enough to know, but I'll tell you this. I've at least at this point worked with thousands and thousands of families. I've never seen that be a positive thing.
Yeah.
I've never seen it be positive.
Yeah.
And, you talk about all the school shooters. One of the things they don't talk about, every single one of them was on some.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're talking about the solutions, right? And we've covered, I love that you guys are addressing the root cause, the entire family. But let's dive into, schools, right?
Yes, sir.
Because I think that's super powerful. Absolutely needs to start at the family. But so how are you guys structured? I mean, you guys do K through 12?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So individually owned and operated campuses. So we do it's an affiliate model.
Okay.
So it's not a franchise. We're very specific. It's an affiliate model. So the best example I can give is it's very much like CrossFit, kind of deal where it's like, because people are always going, hey, I really hope you guys bring a school to. I'm like, dude, rally the troops.
Gotcha.
Like, let's go. If you want, we're not targeting locations. We're opening up and going, do we all vibe and get along as people? Right?
Yeah.
Because we want to support you as people. So if you kind of believe the same things we do, and we have what we call the Apogee code, which is really just the old school Bushido code, of loyalty and honor and commitment and politeness and all like those things, right? You buy into that, you might be our kind of people. So, they apply. We had Tim and I just threw something out there on social media last year, and we had about 400 applications come in, which was rad. So we whittled it down. We got about 50 people that were like, yep, we think you're our kind of folks. And they were like, yep, I think we're this. So here we go. So we'll launch. So when they do that, we give kind of that, the quote unquote keys of the castle. We're putting all of this together with our experience and our team and our understanding of how education really works, giving that to them and the continuous support around building out everything from a business standpoint. So we got these 50 locations operating and they all get to decide. It's ultimately going to be K through 12. Most of them aren't starting K through 12. Most of them are starting somewhere elementary, right? Yeah. And they'll kind of grow from there.
Yeah.
And so, but it's young men, young women, and there's structure to the day. It is not there's schools like the Sudbury schools, and there's a number of schools that are much more kind of Lord of the Flies-esque, right? And it's very much just the kids are going to run the day. And the reality is that can work for a very, very small percentage of the population. a very small percentage
Yeah.
where they've already developed structure at home where you've got very self-directed young people.
Yeah.
And there's all the morals and standards and all that kind of stuff. It can work for a small percentage, but we do have structure for the day. We just don't structure it like school. So instead of operating in subjects, we operate in kind of meta skills buckets. And what I mean by meta skills are what are the things that are non-negotiable for a human being to thrive. It's all the stuff we're talking about, right? And the things that are going to continue to matter as time moves forward, right? So like right now we're talking, it's March of 2024. If I was to ask you, what is the most in-demand job in March of 2040? You don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
And neither do I.
Yeah.
Right. So for us to pretend that we're going to go ahead and quote unquote educate the kid for this
Prepare you for this,
or that, well, it means that you've got to make sure you have your, every kid has phonics at 6 and algebra at 11 and 12. Like it's a silly assumption to make.
Yeah.
What we have to do is have young people who fit the actual cliches. They actually can critically think, and they actually can be a lifelong learner. They can get the information they need. They can get rid of things that are no longer relevant and not pursue those anymore. So that's what we need. So we focus on those meta skills because those meta skills aren't going to change, physical education being one. So our days are set up in these buckets of meta skills. So physical fitness and education is non-negotiable on our campuses. They're actually going to work out.
Nice.
Right?
Love it.
And so there's intellectual freedom of the owners. Working out can be defined. We have some owners who actually are CrossFit gym owners.
Yeah.
So they're attaching their school to their gym, and they're gonna rock their kids through CrossFit, right? We've got
Jiu-jitsu. I feel like I've seen jiu-jitsu.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
One of our
especially with Tim and
one of our 100%, and one of our owners out in Longview, Washington, man, he's a jiu-jitsu stud, black belt, just like legit. Has a jiu-jitsu gym. Sweet. He's gonna like jiu-jitsu. Kickboxing.
Phenomenal.
It's going to be part of that's part of the day, right? So actually working out.
Yeah. Which, by the way, for people that don't know, I mean, we got a fighter right here, man. I guess, I mean, you had your fighting days, man.
I did indeed. Yeah, for sure.
I love it.
Great experience, man. Yeah. So I mean, so much
Powerful.
so much learning. Yeah, we have some cool stories around that for sure.
No stranger to adversity.
No stranger to adversity. Yes, sir.
So, anyway, we'll carry on.
No, thank you. So that physical education part is a non-negotiable part. What else is non-negotiable because it's always going to matter? Well, logic, rhetoric, communication. Right? What does good communication look like? What does civil discourse look like? How do I articulate what it is that I believe and why I believe it? How do I genuinely listen to somebody else who may or may not agree with what I'm saying? How do I keep the emotion out of it so that I can take the evidence and weigh it against my own evidence, shift my mind if better evidence is presented, be able to be okay with the fact that at the end of the day, somebody else is going to disagree with me, which, by the way, you don't agree with, almost anybody on 100% of everything.
Yeah.
Right. You just don't, and that's okay. So that is a bucket in and of itself. We utilize Socratic method. We encourage a lot of questions.
Explain Socratic method for the viewers.
So there's a number of ways to take a look at it. The easiest way is just keep going down the rabbit hole of why.
Yeah.
Right? Why and how. And it's literally the basic who, what, when, where, why kind of questions over and over and over again until you can get down to the root of something.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way. Now there's also other ways to do that from a philosophical standpoint of going, okay, we'll take our young heroes, and this, by the way, this is a great thing for parents to do with their kids, with books or even movies and TV if they want to do it. You put them in the scenario of a protagonist in a situation, and you go, okay, now you're this person. So what would you do in that scenario right there? You've got option A, you've got option B. What do you take and why? And so from a Socratic standpoint, we'll do that with our young heroes too, where we'll put them in a situation. We'll say, okay, you are so-and-so. You've got option A and you've got option B. Both of those will normally be options that are either equally awesome or equally awful. The answer, the real quote unquote answer that people would want to go towards is more towards the middle sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But you make them pick. You make them choose a side. And then you have to articulate why. And then they talk to everybody else in a group, and this person, no, I'm on this side. If I've got to pick, I'm going to be on this side. Why? So like I did with the best conversation I saw anybody have on the George Floyd case. was a group of middle school students.
Nice.
Right. And so now we put them in the position of being, a number of positions. They were the officer who ended up being charged. They were the officer in charge of the officer who ended up being charged, right? We put them in these different scenarios and go, okay, so do you take option A? Do you take option B? Like, what do you do? And it's like, oh, then you got to force yourself to pick a side and articulate why, right? And so what that does is it forces you to go, okay, if I did this, then what would happen? And what would, right? You start to look at pattern recognition and you start to think through the ripple effect of things and you start to critically think because you're now thinking about your thinking.
Yeah.
All right. And so that being a daily thing is that's a critical bucket for us. So you got the Socratic conversation and that civil discourse, logic, rhetoric, like speech and debate falls, within all of that. The physical education, you've got, some campuses will actually put reading and writing as its own thing, because if I was going to pick one thing that you could do to be as educated as humanly possible, it's going to be to read great works and to actually write through thinking about what that is. It's not writing an essay about a book and doing a book report. Those can be somewhat beneficial to get things going, I guess, but writing is for either expressing a specific view and giving it to a specific audience, or it's organizing your thoughts. Like that's what writing is actually for, is to organize what you think and why you think it. So having them read, write, and discuss great literature. I don't need to Scantron. I don't need to, books are not meant to be quizzed. Books are meant to be, I'm going to pull something out, I'm going to apply it to my life, and it's going to make my life better. That's what books are meant to be. Fiction, nonfiction, that's always what it's meant to be. So that may be its own bucket for specific campuses. They got the intellectual freedom. Do they want to include that in that, Socratic debate, whatever? They can do that there, or they can have that be a separate bucket. Projects. And when I say projects, I don't mean everybody follow the teacher while we cut out, flowers and everybody that's the same sort of deal. What I mean is, what's an actual problem to solve or something to create, something that's relevant and something that matters. So first project this year that we've got fully developed, and when I say fully developed, I mean day one throughout the entire 6 weeks of this project, is what does it mean to live by a code, right? So how does that historically come to be true for a specific culture? Who gets to decide what that code means? How does it look to actually be applied? So they're going to go through kind of this historical expedition of what it means to develop a code, how that plays out in society. They're going to develop their own code for themselves, for their family, for their campus. And then we're tying that all into ultimately them creating a Renaissance fair for the community to come visit that they are putting on, the entire thing, right? So they have that, and then they go into what does it mean to be the CEO of your own life? So they go into their own personal psychology. They go into time and energy management as far as scheduling. They go into every project matters, and they're having to collaborate and create something. So they're all starting business. That's part of it this year. They're going to all start a business. They're going to do a mock business first that they're going to have to do all of the research for. They're going to have to create P&Ls. Doesn't matter if you're 5, 6, 8, 9. They're going to create P&Ls around this, and they're going to go give pitches to actual local investors.
Look out.
It is like a Shark Tank sort of deal.
Wow.
Right, they're going to have to defend why they're wanting a certain amount of money and what they're going to do with it and how that's going to. So they're going to do that. Then they're actually going to launch a product or a service, and we're going to have a business fair, and they're actually going to bring that to. So they're doing real things that matter.
Yeah.
Right. So the projects are a bucket, and then responsibilities and jobs. So on campus, they've got an economy on campus. You do certain jobs, you get paid for certain jobs.
Okay.
And so there's an economy that's there, but they all learn that they've got to take responsibility. Freedom doesn't come without the responsibility. So you got to take responsibility for a job on campus that is yours as they get older. A lot of those jobs are still on campus, pouring into the younger students, but then also gaining internships and apprenticeships off campus so that you can go test things to see if you actually want to do something.
Yeah.
One of the things I get so often, man, I get so many people, and lately it's been in the nursing field where people reach out and go, oh my gosh, grew up, I was told nursing was something that was always in demand and it made good money. So that was what I always thought that I wanted to do. But that's why, because everybody said that.
Yeah.
Now I've gone through, I'm in debt, I went through nursing school, I'm now a nurse. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. How do you get around that? Internships and apprenticeships prior to. Go actually experience the things you think you want to do. Get a little bit of experience there. and see, is this a path I really want to go down, or is it not, right? But what do they do? They're too busy playing school. They're too busy going after arbitrary grades for arbitrary subjects to get into this arbitrary college to go down to right. So the internships and apprenticeships matter greatly too. So those are the main buckets that they're spending their time on during the day. We want everything to be intentional and efficient so that it's all something that is moving the needle forward.
Yeah. So I have this thought when you're talking, and I think it's this, what we're talking about is like, you take a child out of the public school system today and ask them to do any of these things that we've just talked about.
Right.
Incapable.
Right.
So how capable are our children? I mean, how much do we underplay our children's capabilities?
So man, the word teenager wasn't even a thing until 1944. It wasn't even a term.
Oh, wow.
It was, you're 13, cool. Like there's usually these rites of passage, right? You become a man, you become a woman, you whatever. And what came with that was a whole lot of responsibility. That is the factory setting. Curiosity is a factory setting. Physical health is a factory setting until we start adding a bunch of other garbage to. We start feeding the wrong crap and medicating with the wrong crap, right? Then physical fitness goes away. Capable is the factory setting of a human.
Yeah.
And that happens very, very early. And we stifle it by saying, look, you don't have responsibility actually at school. Your responsibility is to be obedient, your responsibility, but it's not actual responsibility. You're not in charge of creating anything. You're just in charge of regurgitating, right? Yeah. So we take the responsibility out very early. And so they're not used to that. But it is the natural. Your 2-year-old, your 6-year-old probably does it now. Your 2-year-old very much will soon. And hey, I want to help put away the dishes. I want to help cook dinner.
The 2-year-old does that now.
100%.
Yeah.
And parents, man, as much as what's the easiest thing? The easiest thing is be like, no, because you're going to mess it up, because it's going to take longer, because that's always the easiest thing. What's the best thing? You bet, man. Sounds good. Let's cook dinner. Let's rock and roll.
Look out.
Right. Yep. Let's do it. Let's make that normal. Now you're going to get, part of the reason we're in this place where young people are having a hard time with that too is not only are they not given responsibility, and not only is responsibility not seen as a gateway to freedoms, but then they're also distracted, right? And so it's a multifaceted sort of deal. So we need to give them responsibility early. We need them to understand that responsibility is what leads to freedom. So in our house, I told you we have a very structured, we have a very scheduled day, and they've got all kinds of freedoms. They got all kinds of free time. They got all kinds of cool things they can do on the farm. They got all kinds of stuff, but none of it happens until your responsibilities are met. Your responsibilities aren't met, you don't get to go do the cool stuff yet. Including all your experience. You want to go ride horses, you want to go do, you want to go to kickboxing, you want to go to gymnastics. Cool. Sounds good. I want you to. What are the jobs on the farm? Make sure those are good, and then you'll be able to go. And that means if they're not done, you don't go. It's weird that we got to say that part, but that's a part of it, because parents will excuse that now like nobody's business, right? So that responsibility for them, and we eliminate distractions in our house too. And that's the thing as well. Like as much as we can eliminate.
So give us an example.
Freaking video games is a great example.
Yeah.
It's a huge example. And look, and again, people get really mad when I say that, and you're villainizing video games, and I'm not villainizing anything, man. But I've worked with thousands upon thousands of young people at this point. I know far too many men who don't take care of their responsibilities as husbands or fathers, or go, I hate my job, I wish but in their free time, they're playing freaking Call of Duty or whatever, right? So until 3 o'clock in the morning, and they're not. So
eliminate altogether, or scheduled screen times. Like, how do you, and this is personal, right?
But it's very personal, right? So what needs to get done? So for me, I love video games are freaking awesome. They're designed to be awesome, right? But I know, because of my own personality, I know, no, man, I'll get into a story. I'll get into I haven't touched a video game in more than a decade.
Same here,
right? Yeah. I mean, I just don't I've got too many other things that I want to do to waste my time. It's not something that moves the needle forward for me. It only is going to move it backwards. So I don't touch it. In our house, we don't have them. We don't play them.
Yeah.
And my kids they don't know any different. They just don't have it there, because I don't see the value in it. They have so many other things that they can do and push the needle forward and create right now that it just doesn't make sense for us. It's not anything we need for, downtime or whatever. Like we just don't touch it. Social media ends up becoming, and by the way, again, what did I say earlier when we were talking about, the questions for what grade are you in and what grade level do you read at? It's a ridiculous question for them because it's a ridiculous question for us as adults, right? So everything we're talking about here, distraction-wise, by the way, ask adults it's the same thing. If it's a distraction, if you spend all the time scrolling, it's a distraction, right? Well, it's a distraction for them.
For your child as well.
For sure, because guess what? Like young people, they're not training to be people, right? They're not getting experience to learn how to be people. They're just people with less experience. They're the same thing. They're the same they're a human being like us. So it's a distraction for them too. So eliminating those things helps, it's an addition by subtraction sort of deal too.
Guys, if you don't have precious metals, you got to get your hands on some. The world is not a stable place. Our banking system certainly is not a stable place. So it's important to have precious gold and silver on hand. For me, precious gold, precious silver, and also precious lead to be able to protect yourself. But look, if you are not already into this, you need to go to MidasGoldGroup.com. Our friends there are incredible people. They're incredible patriots. They love America, and they have the best resources on precious metals. The owner, James Clark, is a Marine Corps veteran. He's a patriot, and he is my friend also. And they're just incredible people who know this market inside and out. And you could go there, and if you mention my name, Chad Roby Show, you will get free silver. You'll get some free silver, and you can invest in precious metals and have tangible precious metals on hand in a time of need when those financial markets go down. Go to MidasGoldGroup.com and get your precious metals today. Guys, you heard me say before, you will never hear me promote something that I don't use and don't believe in. One of the supporters of this show is BioPro. I am a believer in this product and offers you a complete growth factor profile. I mean, you're talking about improving your sleep, growing muscle, releasing your own growth hormones in your body, improving your metabolism, just bone density, the way you feel, your overall mood, your sexual desire, your libido, all these just incredible things that come naturally if you could trigger it from your body. As BioPro does that for you. There's a lot of benefits I've heard of from other pro athletes that take this from special operators. But for me personally, I've definitely noticed the increase in recovery. But the biggest thing I've noticed for me is my sleep. Sleep's important to me. I function well with all the stuff I have to do, from speaking, from writing, to running Mighty Oaks, to doing podcasts like this, and going on international operations. Like, I have to have good sleep in order to be able to function at my highest level. And I was not getting it. I would sleep like 4 or 5 hours a night. It was kind of choppy, and I was doing all kinds of things for years. And as soon as I started taking BioPro, I started getting 8 to 9 hours of solid sleep. That's why I'm just hammering home how much I love this product. The people there are absolutely amazing. They're supporters of our military and first responders. They support Mighty Oaks. And the product is absolutely incredible. You have to try it. Go to BioPro, and if you enter the code BioPro30, you'll get 30% off. That's not my code. I actually don't want a code. I want you to get 30% off. And so enter BioPro30, and you get 30% off. Get yours today.
How about nutrition in y'all schools? What do you guys do? This is huge for me. I mean, we fought this battle a lot.
Yes. So, that's such a great question, man. So here's one of the places that we're going to get a ton of pushback from parents, is that we are asking parents not to send a bunch of crap with them, right? Yeah. So depending on the campus, because again, individually owned and operated, some are launching out of a church, some are launching out of a commercial building, some are launching out of their gym, some are launching out, like, there's all different scenarios of how these campuses are launching. But food matters. Real nutrition matters. So we're saying, parents, please don't send garbage. Don't send chips and soda and all that crap in your kids' school lunch. And every campus is going to work to getting to the point where they're cooking on campus, where the kids are actually cooking. So like one of my campuses that I built in California, we had a 18-year-old young man who took on the role of being the executive chef on campus. He went down and worked at the Weston A. Price Foundation. So shout out to Hillary Boynton. She's running a program called School of Lunch.
Yeah.
And so she actually teaches young people how to bring lunch programs.
Weston A. Price, author of Nutritional and Physical and Nutritional Deficiencies, something like that.
Yeah. Yep. So went down there. He shout out to a young man named Trevor. Went down there, worked with Hillary for a week, learned how to not only learn how to make nutritious food and actually cook real nutritious food, not heating up a bunch of frozen stuff, but actually how to get something that's sustainable and make really good nutritious food. But then how do you actually run that as a school program too? So he came back, he ran that. He was our executive chef on campus. He ran the entire program. So like he would get all the orders, 47 orders or whatever comes in, he'd get all of that. He was hiring other like middle school students to come in, be a sous chef. So everybody's learning these valuable skills.
Yeah.
They're taking on the responsibility of, hey, at noon, we got to have all these orders to get ready to go out, and they're making real food on campus. So again, it's bringing everybody into the mix. Not only is it real nutritious food, but the young people are responsible for providing it. That's ultimately where we want every campus to get. So until we get there, it is please don't send a bunch of crap.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And you guys don't provide crap, which I think
absolutely not.
Gosh,
that absolutely will not be doing that.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
It's called hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's called hypocrisy exactly for us, right? Yeah. Like that's it. If we were talking in like the third project, the third session this year is all about health and human physiology. We want them to understand what good nutrition looks like. What does that actually mean? How does my physiology impact how, again, physical health impacts mental health? Like what does all of that mean? So if we were to do that and then go, here's a bunch of processed garbage, that's called hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Run.
Absolutely. So you mentioned a couple times how the children are given responsibility. And
Yes,
I know
sir.
there's a couple of these school models that it's like complete student ran. You guys have, how's y'all's model? It's adult interaction.
So adult interaction.
Oversight.
100%. So
have you seen issues with you were mentioning earlier, there's a small percentage.
It's a small percentage.
That
I've
can
seen
actually
issues
make that work. Yeah.
because that's part of the thing, right? Because you get a small percentage of students maybe on this campus that's completely student run that can handle that. And then you've got a few young heroes who need something more than that. And it ends up being incumbent upon the ninjas, these young people, they end up spending all their time policing the others. And so they don't actually move it. So they end up getting frustrated, right? Because they've not now be sheepdogs for everybody else, but they're not doing anything for this. So is there value in that? There is. There's value in that. And it can still work. But when you've got so many young people who are coming in and who aren't quite, you do need some sort of adult mentoring that helps, right? And so the way I describe our campuses, because I don't want the teachers to have this authority, I don't want them to be teachers, authoritarian, following a script. We're going to lecture, you're going to sit there. That's ridiculous. Completely student run where the adults are completely like, well, as long as they're not dying, like I'm just going to let this all play, and nothing's actually, that also, again, it's not super efficacious.
Sure.
We want them to coach, and it's very much like a jiu-jitsu gym, right?
Gotcha.
There's standards there. You got to coach there, but then you're going to let them grapple together, and you're going to come in and do it. So it's like that, or it's like a summer camp where they're going to be co-curious in there with them. So what's great is that then you can have these coaches or guides, instead of teachers, who can come in and be like, I don't have to be a quote unquote subject matter expert. I just have to come in and be curious and excited to learn along with you.
Yeah.
So let's all put this project together. Like, let's do this. I don't know. Like, let's figure it out together. Right.
Yeah.
And so then, hey, but don't forget our standards, our code of conduct, our character, like it's all this, like that's non-negotiable. Let's all figure out our role in all this and figure this out together. If it's like there's a lot of these school models where it's like, if you were teaching basketball, it'd be like, cool, watch a basketball game. Here's a basket. Here's a ball.
Yeah.
You guys will figure it out.
Yeah.
And they could eventually.
Yeah.
But why not have somebody that goes in and goes, okay, by the way, here's how to dribble.
Yeah.
Like here's the actual shooting technique.
Yeah.
Like this is what it looks like. Let me give you some plays that you can start to run. And then as you start to run those, I'm going to stay off to the sideline, and you're going to start to see different ways to spin. Like, great. So it's intentional coaching like that. So we're kind of that middle ground.
Yeah. I love that. Super powerful. I'll be honest. Like, having kids trying to figure this out for ourselves.
Yeah.
I've looked at different models and I've been kind of like, oh, completely child run. I don't know that. I feel like that could create a lot of issues. I know there's success rates there as well, but anyways, so I like that. I like that you guys do it that way.
And that's just, again, nothing we're going to, we always tell everybody like there's no such thing as perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect parent, no such thing as a perfect kid, no such thing as a perfect system. There's no such thing as perfect. But perfection remains the standard, right? And so we're always going to reserve the right to go, okay, let's tweak a little bit. And I want our owners to do the exact same thing. Go, okay, let's tweak. What do we need to do? How do we make this more efficacious? Like, let's pay attention to that. But we are starting, at least with that starting point of there is experience. Conveyor belt schooling absolutely is not the answer. Completely child-led. I have seen more downside than upside personally. Okay. And so we don't want to go. And again, shout out to some of the organizations, Sudbury schools, love them, man. The Acton Academies, love them, always and forever. And they're amazing human beings that run it. Jeff and Laura Sandifer, who started it, two of the most brilliant educators that ever walked the face of this earth. Huge fan. We just wanted to do it a little bit differently, including the parent portion of that.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Resilient, where we champion the pursuit of strength, adaptability, and courage in the face of adversity. This is episode 2 of our episode with Matt Beaudreau. If you didn't catch the first episode, make sure you go back. We dive into public education and some alternatives that we can have in that. We get all into men leadership and fathering, being a good role model, and it's a great episode. So make sure you check it out, both episode 1 and episode 2. We'll see you guys. I want to talk about something else that I'm super passionate about. It's manhood, it's leadership, men leading. What I call frontline kings.
I like that.
And then we'll get into even some intentional parenting.
Cool.
And that. So, I've seen this a lot in my past as a police officer. We blame a lot of things for the perceived failures or the actual failures of our future generations. A lot of times we blame the system, the criminal justice system. It's too harsh. It's not harsh enough. We blame the schools, a public school, private school. They're not doing what they should be doing. This is my tax money. Right. This whole argument, right?
Right.
But my question is, you want to say, well, what's this public school system? What's the criminal justice system doing? Where are they at? Where are the parents at?
Yeah.
And specifically for what we'll talk about later is where the father's at.
Where are the men?
Where are the men at?
Yep.
So I just want to talk about, the role of men in today's society.
Yeah.
And I know at Apogee, you guys push this forward.
Very much so.
So let's just dive into that.
Yeah,
What is a man's role? And first we'll go in society and then we'll talk about family unit.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that question. We've got a number of guys that we've had some really good conversations with our men in the Apogee, and some of them write or speak very much on the role of men in society, and they do it better than I do, but we've been intentional on partnering with him. So guys like Stephen Mansfield, guys like Jack Donovan, who wrote The Way of Men, and we actually went down. So a gentleman, Ryan Mickler, if you're familiar with Ryan, his work, Order of Man, and
Order of Man.
We went down a couple of years ago. There was a gentleman that actually invited multiple guys and their families all down into Mexico. We went down there for a week vacation, and which was amazing, but it was all predicated upon us getting together in the morning for 4 or 5 hours, the men getting together and kind of having this conversation and then figuring out a way to help each other push this forward. And so I was blessed enough to be able to be invited to that myself. Ryan Mickler, Bedros Koulian, John Lovell of Warrior Poet Society, Jack Donovan, Stephen Mansfield, Kip Sorensen, Ray Cash Care, forgive me if I miss anybody, but just a bunch of really good human beings, Tanner Guzzi, a bunch of really good human beings. And so we had this discussion quite a bit, and it really came down to more of these kind of classical values. We talked about that Apogee code earlier, kind of that Bushido code of loyalty and honor and commitment, and politeness and responsibility and passion and purpose. And so that's really, we talked about earlier, what should education be for? Sovereignty and freedom. I've come to believe the role of a man is really to be an example of that code. It's to be an example of that code, first and foremost, for your family.
Yeah.
Right. But then as it goes out, culturally speaking, how do we live that way?
Yeah.
How do we get to the point? Like, I want, you and I had just met for the first time here today.
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like, and I believe as a relationship continues to play out, I feel like you are somebody who I shake your hand and you tell me something, and I feel like I can believe that that's true.
Yeah.
Right. I believe that your word is likely your bond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I believe that'll continue to play out. And so I believe that what we're doing is we're really looking for other men who are the same way.
Yeah.
Who are living, it's the kind of that classic, like, what you say is what you mean, you mean what you say. It's that whole thing. And that you're going to live in a way that is also selfless, that there is a purpose there, that you're going to go serve, that you're going to go create more than you're going to consume, that you're going to see problems and be able to understand that those problems are there. And you can't fix every problem, but what can you fix? What can you do to make things better? We've got rules in our house as a family contract. That sixth rule in our house says no complaining, fix it. So if it's something, and we believe, look, this is the way Beaudreaus are going to need to be. Like, if we see something that's a problem that is worth going, somebody should cool. Then that means, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, shush. And I think that's really kind of what we need to do. And by the way, there's a lot of these good men out there.
Yeah.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
There are a bunch. And you and I were talking about that earlier, right? You were kind of in this, you don't get that picture painted,
Yeah.
you're going to see you're going to see the weak men.
Because of the cell.
And you're going to see that, right?
Yeah.
It sells a whole lot more to see all the weakness and to see, you're going to see that, and weakness is usually more audacious anyways, right? Confidence doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
But in today's society where there's cameras on everything, well, what gets highlighted, is the BS.
Yeah.
And so what you're talking about is kind of a return to going, hey, no, there's responsibility here. So for me, that's what it means, man.
And you said something, it reminded me, because I want to remember, because I liked it. Men who complain more than they consume. Because there's something I say. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to and create.
Yeah.
Right.
Create more than they consume. Create more than they consume.
consume.
Because I say this a lot, when talking to people, and I'm like, we have a lot of men whose excuses outweigh their contributions.
Yes, sir.
And, there's this saying that I say all the time. I love it. It's cliche. It's like Bushido, like what you said. It's the hard times create strong men.
Right.
Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men
create hard times.
Yes,
Yes,
right?
Sir.
But I think when we strip that down, strip that away, what we're saying is that challenge equals progress.
Yeah.
That adversity creates growth.
Yep.
And I think in today's time, where there's constant convenience in what we live in today's world, we could, if we wanted to, we could order Grubhub right now. McDonald's, we don't even have to drive to McDonald's.
That's right. Just come right to us.
Not only do we not have to make a decision whether or not we're going to eat something healthy,
Yep.
we don't even have to drive to go get what's unhealthy.
Yep.
Right? We want something, whatever channel we want to watch, whatever TV show we want to watch,
right.
without commercials.
Always have it our way.
Convenience right here. And so I think in today's world, men don't really struggle like they used to. And so we have to, I think it's important that today's men, especially as we lead from the front, as we establish ourselves as a frontline king, we have to intentionally put ourselves in challenging situations.
Yep.
That's why I love jujitsu.
Yep.
Right? Because you step on the mat, it's going to be challenging.
Yep.
You're going to go through adversity, and you're going to wrestle with the ins and outs and the ups and downs.
That's right.
Of that adversity, and it creates character, and then that character creates a certain type of human being.
That's right.
And then that human being goes and creates a legacy based off of that.
Bingo. That's exactly it, man. And there's a million. I like that. I'm going to steal that too, and I'll try to always remember to give credit. But right, the excuses outweighing the contributions. Yeah. I really, really like that. Albert Camus said, "There's always a philosophy for a lack of courage," and I really feel like that's playing out with so many men because we see that all over and over. And even we'll kick off, we'll do quarterly launches of our men's program, which is 12 months of very intense education. And it's a very intense educational experience, but it's also very intentionally has an element of self-direction that is in it. We're very much together, but you're very much asked to play this out in your home and in your community. And then we come together and go, how's this working? How's it not working? What is that, right? So, but one of the questions that we get asked all the time is, is there any way to make this shorter like this? I'm like, no, because I want to see who's actually committed. Yeah. Commitment actually means something.
You're looking for the fat loss pill, bro.
That's exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And so even men who say they're quote unquote committed and they sign the code, you'll see pretty quickly who no longer puts value behind the word commitment.
Yeah.
Right. They don't follow through on those things because they start to go, wait, this is actually a little difficult. And they'll try to rationalize it afterwards. Yeah. Right. They'll make an emotional decision. They'll try to rationalize it afterwards, which is what human beings tend to do anyways. But they'll make that emotional decision and try to rationalize it backwards, going, okay, yeah, but this is why this didn't work for me. You didn't do the work.
Yeah.
Right. But because it presented challenges, it presented adversity. And it is a need, man. That's part of the reason we moved to a farm. I mean, it wasn't exactly easy to leave the place we were born and raised, all of our family was, where I had 3 businesses, and it wasn't easy to move across the country.
Yeah.
And to go from, these 2 Bay Area city kids, my wife and I were growing up, right, to get out to now we're running a farm with animals and a processing hut. And
this is awesome.
It's like the real deal. And people, well, how did you learn how to do that? We did it.
Yeah.
And we messed it up.
Yeah.
And we keep messing it up. And then we keep going.
Yeah.
Like that's how it works.
Yeah. I love that story because my wife, I could give my shout out to my wife. She's the most resilient woman I know.
Yeah.
But they grew up on property and, she's extremely strong for a small woman.
Yeah.
And she says all the time, it's because I carried tax to feed.
That's right.
All day long.
All day long.
That's what I would do.
And those things are 50 pounds.
And I pull around a horse on a halter or a cow on a lead rope, so, there's something about that,
awesome,
as a side note
for
it's
cool.
The farm and that way of life.
Yes, sir.
There's something about it creates adversity.
Yes, sir.
Leadership.
It's
courage,
inherent,
character.
man.
Yeah, because otherwise you don't survive.
You don't survive.
Otherwise your farm is not a farm.
That's right. Yeah. That's exactly right. And there's always something that you don't want to deal with that you have to deal with anyways.
Yeah.
Right. We got thousands of trees on our property, and so I got about 20 acres that's fenced with electric fencing. Right. Well, one of those trees falls. What happens? Takes out the electric fence, and now I've got a bunch of animals that might get loose, and they don't have. So guess what? I got to learn how to do. Get out there and get a freaking chainsaw and get out there and learn to lumberjack a little bit. Got to get to work. Got to learn how to fix an electric fence. Got to look. And again, education is wildly personal, right? I didn't have to do that while I was I didn't have to know about electric fencing when I was in California because it didn't matter to me. It matters to me now, so I need to be able to go do it now, right? So that happens. We had just had a bunch of baby goats like 3 weeks ago. One of them somehow freak accident punctured itself and died.
Oh no.
And okay, so now what?
Yeah.
You've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
And my kids are learning, right? They're dealing with that.
Yeah.
So there's so many valuable lessons in things like that because it is a microcosm of how the world actually works.
Yeah.
So you get used to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you guys, just as a call to action, as a resource for people who are listening or viewing, Apogee helps men figure this question out. Hey, what does a man do? Right.
Yes, sir.
So you guys have it. It's Apogee Strong is what they would go to for this, correct?
Yes, sir. ApogeeStrong.com is the website. And if you go into the programs, you'll see all the various programs, but Apogee Men is in there. And it's, again, a very intentional 12 months. It is an intense 12 months.
Nice.
But a very similar thing to how the young men is set up. Right? So every month is a spotlight on something that matters. So that first month, it's on your own personal psychology, your own thinking about it's critical thinking. It's your thinking about your thinking, the stories you're telling yourself, who you've been, is not who you're going to be unless you decide to live back there. And so like, how do you move yourself forward? It's getting the psychology, you know, kind of like the neurological reprogramming. I mean, that's really where we start.
Yeah.
And by the way, this wasn't Matt and Tim thought this would be cool.
Yeah.
This was, okay, here's a need. Who are the best people at doing this? So when you talk about that first month for us, it's like, you know, working with, you know, Joe Dispenza and working with Todd Herman, right? Who was a sports psychologist responsible for Kobe Bryant's whole Mamba mentality and all that. Like, so going, okay, what are the projects and challenges that men can take on to help push themselves forward, right? In that way. So, you know, go from that to the time and energy management to health and fitness and nutrition. And by the way, health being a part of that. Like, do I want guys to be jacked and have 6-pack abs? Sure. Yeah, for sure. But also learn how to not be sick all the time.
Yeah. How about you just don't be sick?
How about not be sick? Yeah. How about make sure that I can think as clearly as possible for as long as possible throughout every single day? Because I understand how to, you know, make sure I'm actually healthy. Into the spiritual side of things, and not in a, here's what I believe, here's what you believe, and let's just debate over it, but in a, where am I potentially wrong? We actually have them steel man their beliefs and go, where could I be missing the boat? Going into rhetoric and logical fallacies and intentional relationships with our wives, intentional relationships with the kids, creating legacy and a legacy playbook for future generations, going into sovereignty and resilience and self-reliance, doing like a self-reliance audit and how, you know, self-reliant am I actually, going into community leadership, sales, marketing, public speaking, and then we save kind of the financial game and the financial piece towards the end because a lot of guys are really excited about that, but we want to again see who. There's very much a tryout aspect to this.
Can you get here?
I want to see who you are before we even start doing that because I don't want to teach some douchebag how to make a bunch more money or save his money or give money because he's not going to give his money. So, you know, we have that that whole process set up. Same thing in a community, in a private platform, and again every single week. You know, we're bringing these guest mentors in for them to speak with and speak to. You know, as well. When I say guest mentors, I mean you name it. We're bringing you name it. They're coming in.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it's rad, man. But
that's extensive.
It's extensive.
It's cool to hear you rattle it off. I mean,
it's extensive, man. But again, awesome. It's not going to be for everybody because not everybody's going to want to take the personal responsibility to drive that forward, and that's okay. We're not going to try to sell anybody on coming. We're not going to try to sell anybody on staying. We want to see, there's that tryout element. We want to see who we're working with forever because these are the guys that mean it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep moving down this road into something else you guys do, Apogee Dads. So let's talk about you know, this phenomenon that, you know, again, I got to see this firsthand as a law enforcement officer and dealing with the kids on the street. And, you know, I don't know for sure, but I would go out and say that 100% of the bad actors that I dealt with on the street come from a fatherless home. Yeah. And that's no knock on the mother who's doing her absolute best. Of course. But studies are very clear on, you know, the increased risk of drug abuse. Yep. Increased risk of incarceration, obesity, suicide, and these kids that come from, you know, fatherless homes, men who bailed because it was easier to do so. And we could sit here and say, well, what were they raised? Like maybe their dad bailed on them, but hey, like somebody's got to break the generational cycle at this point,
exactly right?
Because are your family going to be a legacy of losers?
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
Absent men, or are you going to break the cycle and create a new legacy for your family? That's right. And so let's dive into that a little bit. Let's dive into how a man leads his family. Yeah. How is he a father? You know, being a representative, you know, leading from the front. Yeah. Share some of your thoughts on that. It's
being that example. And I like what you said, because that ultimately, you're right, man. It's not up to you, the cards that you're dealt, but it absolutely early on becomes your choice on how you play the cards. Period. Yeah. Right. Dad in the home was great. Dad in the home wasn't great. Dad wasn't there. You don't get to choose that, but you get to choose who you are as that dad going forward.
Well, this goes back to this goes back to your excuses outweighing your contributions. That's right. Like we can create an excuse for everything. 100%. Oh, my dad wasn't there for me. 100%. My dad was absent for me. So give me a break.
Yeah.
Like,
Or cool, man. Cool. Congrats. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am sorry. But also, see how that impacted you?
yeah,
Cool. So now you've got a prime example of how to go a different way.
Yeah.
You've got a prime example, right? And I got, my father and I don't talk to each other for, a million different reasons.
Yeah.
But he was there growing up. We didn't get along.
Sure.
And I could make an argument that there were some things that weren't cool. And there's a reason we don't talk, but that's
Sure.
fine. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for what he did do. I'm grateful for the example of the things that I think that aren't okay and that I will do better. And by the way, I'm grateful because I started repeating some of the same things that he did that I know wasn't, and saw myself do that and went, ooh, not cool, not okay,
Yeah.
not okay.
Yeah.
I need to change this quick, right? And I don't know if I would have changed it like that without knowing what I experienced. So
Sure.
it's what's the perspective, right?
Yeah,
How do we want to look at that whole thing? And part of, one of the questions that we get quite a bit from people just shooting DMs or emails or something. So what's the best, you had a favorite book on being a good, father? And my response is always, again, education is an individual thing. So what does he need?
Yeah.
So for some men, it does start with them being the example.
Yeah.
Right? That's always what it starts with. Again, we go back to what we were talking about earlier. Normal, right?
Yeah.
What is normal? What do your kids see is quote unquote normal for a man?
Yeah.
How does he conduct himself? The young, your boys are looking at you and going, okay, this is what a man does, so this is what I'm supposed to do. Your girls are looking at you and going, okay, this is what a man does. I see how he treats my mom, and so if I'm going to get into a relationship eventually with a man, then that's how he's going to need to treat me. Like that's what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Right? What are we establishing as the baseline for normal?
Yeah.
And so it's very individualized for the men because some men really where they need to step up their example is in the physical health.
Yeah,
or maybe they need to step up the example of learning how to be better with finances. I won't just call it as making more money. No, be better, understanding how money works. How do you take care of people? How do you make more so that you can actually give more and go impact more? Right? Money can't buy you happiness at all, but it can buy you out of some bad situations too.
Sure.
Right? You can help yourself and then go help other people because of that. So maybe that's where he needs to get better. Maybe it's the communication because he shuts down. Maybe it's in taking more responsibility because he distracts himself with, video games and football and, whatever else so that he doesn't have to deal with the fact that he's got places that he needs to move forward and he's too scared to do it.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? And so, for us, we're very intentional about hitting all of those parts for these dads, as well as how do you now communicate with that young person? How do you set intentional time aside? How do you talk through some of the conversations that are not normally, we grew up in a time where it's like, well, you don't talk about religion, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about you don't talk about money. It's rude to talk about all these kind of things. Cool. Well, that's developed a bunch of people that can't talk about those things. So how do we talk about those things early and often? And how do we have productive conversations, around that? So it's literally trying to optimize every single bit of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk with you about something that I want to say I've either seen you post about or I've heard you talk about. It's something that maybe it's just because I'm sitting here with you and I know we probably view this as the same way.
Yeah.
But how important it is that, yes, the father lead, be an example, right? But also how important it is that the father loves the mother.
Yeah, buddy.
Right? And sets an example that the child is not the center of that household.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
So like, for example, and this is a practice that I like to have, not because I'm amazing, but it's just a practice that I like to instill so that hopefully my child takes something from this.
Sure.
If I'm talking to my wife and my son comes and interrupts me, it's not, hey bud, what's going on? It's, hey Bubba, daddy's talking to mama. And
totally.
Please, my wife, carry on your conversation.
Totally.
And he needs to sit there and realize oh, wait a second. My dad values my mom.
Yes.
In
everything.
That's important to me. And then my little girl, she sees that.
Yes.
Come in, I see my wife.
Yeah.
I greet my kids. I greet my children, but I also go and I give my wife a kiss on
You
the
bet.
cheek, right?
You bet.
Because it's not like, hey, greet your kids and your wife's non-existent.
No.
You know?
You need to honor that. You're honoring that relationship.
Yeah.
And you're making it very obvious that you honor that relationship. I love what you're saying there on the interruptions. Same thing. Our kids were taught, like, hey, mom and dad are talking, and if you have something to say, no problem.
Yeah.
You come on up. You see us engaging in conversation. You can come up and just kind of put your hand on my leg. You can come put your hand up, just, here you go. And I'll acknowledge you. I'm not ignoring you and just go, I just kind of give them a little, yep, you bet. And then we'll keep having that conversation. And then when it's time, okay, thanks for waiting.
What you got?
What you got.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
Yeah.
Thanks. But that intentionality of honoring that relationship matters. I posted something not too long ago and said something about the fact that a man doesn't complain about his wife to his kids either. I don't like that at all. And people, oh, well, what about the lady who's, she's off the rails and she's alcoholic and everybody wants to go off the deep end
Create the excuse.
create the excuse, right? They want to create the excuse. Okay, cool. Are there ladies who are struggling with that? Sure, probably. Yeah, absolutely. But are you still the man that goes and complains about that to your kids? You still don't have to do that, right? Well, you got to be honest with your kids. Of course. But I'm not going to run their mom under the bus in front. That's not the same thing. And you don't again, it's the excuse thing. So I will only speak to her in an honoring fashion, and I will only speak to them about her in an honoring fashion. I won't pretend. They know daddy's not perfect, mommy's not perfect. We all make mistakes. We're all trying to grow. We have a relationship that doesn't have to go, hey, here's what mommy's working on, here's what daddy's working on. We have that conversation all the time so they can see we're still working on growing on all these things. But I'm not going to speak badly, and I'm going to honor the relationship. I'm going to open doors. I'm going to, they're never going to hear me. And by the way, nobody's ever heard me say a bad word about my wife. Nobody.
Yeah.
0 people have ever heard me say anything negative about my wife in 18 years.
Yeah.
I won't do it. We have our disagreements.
Of course.
I will not speak badly about her to somebody else.
Yeah.
Just won't.
Absolutely. You said something that made me have another thought. It's the idea of we're not perfect. Like, daddy's not perfect, mommy's not perfect. And I think that most parents want their kids to view them as perfect. I mean, my child's 6. I can't tell you how many times I've apologized to him.
So powerful.
Because
so powerful.
I didn't grow up even knowing how to apologize because nobody modeled it for me.
That's right.
So I think this machismo, like men have it figured out, and I'm supposed to look like I have it figured out, and everything's perfect. I mean, it's the opposite of strong. It's weak because you're so insecure with your own image that you actually can't be vulnerable enough to realize, to show people who you really are.
That's right.
And that's a weakness, not a strength.
That's exactly what it is, man. That's exactly what it is. I will let my kids know anytime I'm struggling about anything. And so what's interesting is what you just said too. I was on a call with a few really, really good guys not too long ago, and everybody kind of works in this space. And one of the guys is like, cool, man, but everything you post, like everything seems polished. Like, what's really going on? And I'm like, there is a balance in there. I'm the first one to admit I've got faults out the yang, but I also don't buy into this cultural narrative now of just like the cool thing is to talk about how broken and how messed up you are all the time.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If you're always messed up and broken, you're not learning from the mistakes.
Yeah.
You're choosing to just live in that. I don't live in it. I make mistake after mistake, but I'm not going to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes a choice.
Yeah.
I mess up all the time, but I change behaviors afterwards, right? And I try to learn. And in that process, I will always bring my wife and kids along.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's how that looks there. Yes, they need that male role model to look up to. They need that superhero that's kind of on that pedestal. But they need to understand exactly what you're saying. Superhero doesn't mean perfection.
Yeah. It's
the pursuit of perfection.
Yeah.
And so I will always, like, whether I mess up with them and absolutely have like, man, I got to go back in and I'm freaking notorious. I'm notorious for my wife and I going to bed and maybe being like, dang it, I don't like how I left that conversation with Morgan. I don't, dude, I got to just get back up and just go in there and go, hey, I don't want you guys going to bed with this kind of vibe. Here's where I screwed that up. Here's where I took the energy the wrong way. And I'm really sorry about that. Here's what I should have done instead. And this is what I did. So
That's leadership.
I'm sorry about that. Right.
That's
You
leadership.
got to do that. Man.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And what you're saying, well, everything you're posting, your buddy's saying, everything you're posting is so polished. It's like, what's really happening? Well, what's really happening is that now, did I have a fault? Maybe, but I course corrected to that.
Bingo.
I course corrected to, hey, bub, daddy raised his voice at you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was wrong.
Me raising my voice at you is not your fault.
Yep.
Because that's what a child thinks.
That's right.
He raised his voice at me. I'm not good.
That's right.
Right?
That's
so,
right.
hey, bud, I'm sorry,
Yep.
Dad raised his voice at you.
That's right.
Not like, oh, will you please forgive me? And this week, you don't have to go weak with it either, right? But like, just, hey, bud, that was wrong. I apologize.
That's it.
Man,
that's it. And so there's this balance that takes place, man. And so I love this conversation. There's this balance that takes place on exactly what you said, going, hey, look, here's what I did wrong. Here's what I should have done instead. And here's what I got to do going forward. And so there's always that example. And by the way, even when it's not something that is an offense to my children, it is just something that, hey, so daddy's working on this right now, work-wise, and there's somebody that's frustrating me in work, whatever. I will talk about that with my wife and with my kids. So they see, look, things aren't always perfect. Daddy doesn't know how to fix a situation right now. Here's what I'm struggling with. I'm struggling with this at work. This guy does this thing here, or he's saying this thing here, and I want to try to lead him better, but I'm messing up here. Whatever. I want them to see that struggle all the time. I want them to understand I constantly am trying to grow. So we're setting that standard there. I will very much point out when other people are struggling in a way that, like, if I can use it that's outside of me and just go, look at this guy, look at the way he's struggling to do this to get better. Like, that's awesome. That's what leadership looks like. I'll use other people as well.
Yeah.
I'll use myself, use other people. I will very much go, look, see what happens if you make bad decisions. Like, this is unfortunate. Like, consequences, right? We'll have those conversations all the time so that they're continuously getting examples. This is going the right direction. This is going the wrong direction. This is going the right direction. This is going the wrong direction. So we'll do that. Where it gets to be super powerful, I mentioned we have those rules in our house. Those rules are a family contract. This is how we show up. Where it gets to be most powerful, yes, I can always hold my kids accountable to that because this is the contract.
Yeah.
My wife can always hold them to that. I can hold my wife, she can hold me. Where it gets powerful is when they hold us to it. And they go, Dad, rule number is this. What's going on? And when I go, okay. You're right. All right. So then here's what I need to do. Then not only do they go, okay, Dad means what he says and he says what he means.
Yeah.
But they also believe that is an important concept because it was important enough for me to change it when they said, right? And so the relationship strengthens and their relationship with that concept, that idea changes and strengthens.
Man, that's super powerful.
Matters.
That's wild. Man, I feel like we could sit here
100%
and just tear it up.
Yeah.
But we're like almost 2 hours strong now. I want to respect your time. Let's get some final call to actions. We have Apogee Strong.
Man. Yeah.
We have Apogee Dads.
Yeah.
Apogee Men. Is it all live under Apogee Strong?
All under the Apogee Strong site now.
So ApogeeStrong.com?
ApogeeStrong.com.
Okay.
Yep. And that'll literally link to all the various programs. Again, those can all stand alone or they're designed to be able to go together. You'll be able to find out where all the campuses are launching. We got a campus map. We'll get very soon it'll be updated with the first step of the application as we start taking on more and more affiliates.
Okay.
So all of it'll be there, and there should be links to the Apogee Strong Foundation too. And the only other place I would ask people to go if they were curious at all about helping is ApogeePays.com.
Okay.
Is something that we just created as a payment processing system. It's an alternative to PayPal or Stripe or these organizations. We created it for two reasons. One, Stripe held our money because they didn't like that we didn't have enough things for women. That's a whole nother episode in and of itself,
gosh,
right?
Yeah, so we'll come back to that one.
It got held there, which we didn't love, but also it allows us an avenue to help businesses that want to help other human beings. So just by doing business, instead of us making money on that margin like Stripe or PayPal does, it goes right into our foundation so that we can go help more families. So anybody that's a business owner, ApogeePays.com is a cool thing to check out too, because nothing changes for you, but you get to help more humans in your community.
I love that.
Yeah, so any of those places are great.
And we support what you guys are doing, which is changing changing. I mean, at Mighty Oaks, we say we change legacies.
Yeah.
You guys are doing the same.
And back at you. That's why we all get along, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Sweet. Cool. Well, if you guys are catching the end of this episode and you guys did not hear us dive into the public education piece, then definitely go back and check out that piece. But Matt, I got a couple gifts for you, man. We got a swag bag from Mighty Oaks. There's a awesome hat. I see you're a hat guy.
So
this is the camo Mighty Oaks hat.
So
and then
rad.
Gators is a sponsor for us. They make American made the best sunglasses in the tactical community. And if they're good in the tactical community, they're good for any community.
Yes, sir.
So we'll get you a pair of Gators sunglasses.
Man,
and
grateful.
yeah, we'll definitely have you back out for sure.
Grateful. Anytime.
So,
Honor's mine.
it's an honor for you to come, brother. I appreciate it.
Honor's mine.
All right. That's it. We're out. What's up, guys? Sean here, one of your hosts at Resilient. Thank you for watching the show. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any bonus content in future episodes. We have some amazing guests that share their story of resilience, and you won't want to miss it.